Hello, everyone. Thanks for joining me today. I want to talk to you today about personal brands. I think is important, and I put it together because it certainly has helped my financial well-being, and I think learning about it might help you. So I am Peter Waitzman, and I have worked my entire career in personal finance. And so I have been teaching and helping people with personal finance and their financial wellness. And one of the things that I was working on my own was a side hustle. And while I was doing that, I realized that I had a brand problem. So for the last few years, I have been working pretty diligently to understand personal branding more, as well as make the changes that I have been learning about along the way. And I've had some great results with them. So I wanted to share my learnings with you and give you some tips and tricks so that you might be able to integrate them in your own life. So for me, my side hustle was on YouTube. I have a YouTube channel. And on this YouTube channel, I do reviews of products, I share things about my life, and I had a slogan that was just stuff I like. So it wasn't really very organized, it wasn't actually that clear, but anything that I found interesting or helpful or entertaining, I would just share on the channel. And the channel was growing over the years, but I really wasn't having the big growth that I was hoping for and that you might expect for someone who's been on YouTube for 7 or 8 years at that point. So one of the things that I wanted to do was figure out why was I languishing? And I think one of the big issues for me was that I didn't have a clear brand there. Even though at its core, the channel was really about me, I didn't have a clear personal brand. So going through this process and gaining more clarity about what I was about helped me establish my personal brand, and it changed everything for me. So my tip here is that personal branding is something that you want to learn as early as possible, because the sooner you start on this, the sooner you'll see changes and benefits. All right. When we talk about branding, what do you think of? And I think for most people, including myself, I think about big companies and the logos that we see. We associate with those with brands or tagline or slogans, and we think of branding as a corporate or company issue, when in reality, branding applies to everyone. And think about branding in the personal finance space. I think there are some personalities that you and I probably would recognize. This guy, Dave Ramsey, he's known as the no debt guy. He gets people out of debt. Mark Cuban, he's seen as a entrepreneur extraordinaire, billionaire investors on Shark Tank. And then Kylie Jenner, I believe she's the youngest self-made billionaire, has done a great job of branding herself over the years and establishing her own product lines. But I bring them up because I think at some level we have seen these faces, we know these people, and even though you might not know what their slogan or their personal brand is all about, we would probably describe each of these people in very similar ways, even if we didn't use the exact same language. And we would probably be able to share a pretty accurate description within a sentence or two. And so I think that means that they have established very good, broadly known personal brands. So I think these people, whether they intended it or not, have really strong personal brands, and I think we can learn a lot from them. So the tip here is that we all have a personal brand, whether we intend to or not. So what is a personal brand? I like this quote: "A brand is simply what people think about when they think of you." Another way to think about this, and some people say, is a brand is what people say about you when you leave the room. So you may have been at a party or a meeting and someone leaves the room and they start whispering about them. Hey, that person married this person, or that person is a successful business person, or that person was on a TV show, or whatever it might be, right? And so those people are carrying around a personal brand. What are people thinking about us? And what are they saying about us when we're not there? That's really what our brand is. And a lot of people would think, don't I already know what people think about me? Are you sure you know what they're saying about you? And even if they are saying things about you, do you have any control over that? Can I change it if I don't like it? Or can I influence it in the way that I want to? So I think we need to start here by understanding what our personal brand is. What do people really think about us and what we do when we're not there? And a good tip here, I think, is to ask an acquaintance, maybe not a close friend who might try to protect your feelings, but maybe an acquaintance who would give it to you straight, give you some honest feedback, and let you know what people are really saying about you. All right, so where do personal brands come from? Now, this slide is going to be slightly complex. I'm going to try to break it down here in the simplest way possible, because I think we hear a lot of phrases about what personal brands are, and I think they're generally correct, but I don't know that people understand where those phrases come from. So let's take a look at this person here, and this is us, and we have a value system. And when we talk about values in personal finance, we think about our personal values, and that gets expressed in the way we spend our money. And values do the same thing in the personal branding world here. These are the things that are really foundational to us. They are our belief systems. They're usually built on how we were raised or where we come from, the experiences that we've had in life, right? Our core principles. These are things that don't change very often, and they really drive everything else for us. Next is our talents and interests. So we have some gifts here. Maybe some people are good at teaching. Maybe some people are good at athletics, whatever it might be. These are the personal, unique strengths that we have, the things that we've accomplished, the preferences that we have. A lot of these can be expressed in the hobbies that we pursue or the pastimes that we pursue. But what these are activities and actions that are expressions of our value system. So we will spend our time and our efforts on things that are copacetic to our value system. So I would summarize this as things that we do, our activities, where we spend our time. And now the third piece to this is our messaging. What a lot of people can see are our activities and our actions, but what they can't see necessarily is our principles, our value system, our beliefs, the things that are important to us. And so we express those. We tell people what they are. We tell people that we're interested in certain things. We tell people that we're interested in working on environmental issues, or that we want to engage in science and technology, or that we're passionate about athletics, or that we want to help the homeless, or whatever the message is that you want to express, that you truly believe in. So what we have here now are the things that we believe, our value system. We have the things that we do, our talents and interests and activities. And then we also have the messaging that we put out, and those are received and seen by people around us. And so as I talked about, our branding is really the perception that people have of us. Now, where does that perception come from? So if people hear our message, they might hear things like, hey, you're really interested in science, you're really interested in athletics, you're really interested in charity work, whatever it might be. But then they are going to look at what we're doing, right? Where we're spending our time, what are we involved in? What are our hobbies? What are our activities? And do those back up what our message is? So if I say that I'm really passionate about working with charitable organizations within my city, and I am showing through pictures and experiences and blog posts and writings and speaking about how I am really involved in those, then there's going to be this overlap where the message is reinforced by our actions. And that is really what our brand is. What people hear from us and see in our actions, where those are aligned is our brand. And so the saying that you might see sometimes is brand is where perception meets reality. And so this is my explanation of what that means. Now, just because you have a message and that you are trying to craft your brand in a certain way doesn't necessarily mean that people will believe that, doesn't necessarily mean that will be your brand. In fact, here's an example of what not to do. This is a person that I follow, and I'm going to anonymize all this. And he wrote this as the description in his bio. I feel the work I do is a reflection of who I am, and the idea behind the work I do is more important than the work itself. I don't actually see myself in the product business at all. I am in the business of caring. I am a guy who wakes up with one goal: do the right thing. So this is one of those really nice things that you can type out, call your slogan, call your mission statement, say that this is what you do. But then when people observe how you are working, and over the years, what people have seen is that this person constantly attacks his competitors, belittles his competitors, belittles his employees. He has attacked his business partners. And so one of the things here is that despite the fact that he has been trying to craft his brand in a certain way, it hasn't been a big secret. And so when I see comments on his website and social media posts that say, rude, bordering on bullying, you have lost all credibility, you owe them an apology. And this comment was the most telling here. You came off childish and arrogant with a bit of bitterness, as I can only assume stems from jealousy. Whatever the reasons, it did not help your brand, but rather hurt it. And I think this is really important because, as I showed you in the previous slide, just because we say we are something doesn't necessarily mean that we are. And it certainly doesn't mean that people will believe it. And so you can do a lot of harm to your reputation and your brand if you aren't supporting through your actions what you're telling people. And so my tip here is commit to self-awareness. Who are you? Are you trying to craft an image of yourself that isn't really true? Embrace who you are and embrace those strengths and your true preferences, right? It's always going to be much easier to be authentically you than trying to be someone you're not. All right, so why is brand important? Why are we even talking about it? You may remember back in grade school, at least I did, that people would threaten me that this might go on your permanent record. I learned that there was no permanent record. There was nothing following you, but now we really do have a permanent record. One of the things that the internet means that everything that you do is recorded forever. And so if you put something out there, the reality is you have to be aware that it might follow you forever. So everything you post on social media impacts your personal brand. How do you want to be known? It's a great question, right? 75% of 10 to 12-year-olds are using social media. The vast majority of people are using social media and putting stuff out there. And all of these elements comprise a picture of who you are. And so that is really your personal brand. It's one of the easiest places people can go to get a better understanding of who you are. So social media, while it's not the only way to build a personal brand, is certainly a big piece of this. And I actually say that today's branding is yesterday's credit history. And what I mean by that is when I was growing up, my parents didn't really talk about establishing good credit history because when they were growing up, they didn't really have to think about it, right? So when I went to college, there were credit card applications all over the place. You could apply for things. You were encouraged to. You got a free t-shirt. So I got a bunch of those. But now we know a lot about credit history and how important a good credit score is for people. And so what we do is we teach a lot about credit history and establishing credit. But for a lot of us, we didn't grow up trying to establish personal brands early, especially in our early years in school or in childhood. And one of the things that we don't have a lot of experience with is crafting personal brands at any age. And so kids are learning now is how important this is, how the information that they're sharing follows them forever. And they are going to be, for better or worse, branding experts as they continue to grow up. And they will be teaching these younger generations about how important it is to establish a strong personal brand. So that's why I think it's really important for us to get our hands around it, not just for our own benefit, but because we can help the younger generation who is already leveraging social media, how important it is to understand why this affects their personal brand. The other thing here is that brand attracts your tribe. So the more information that you put out there, the more people you reach, the more people that you follow, the more people that share similar interests helps you dive deeper into these things. So if you're interested in outdoor activities, maybe you're following people that are doing these things, going on those adventures, and maybe you're reaching out to them and finding out more information and getting more immersed in that culture. And maybe when you start traveling and going on these trips and share your experiences, people are going to start following you and reach out to you. And so if adventure and exploration and travel is important to you, by sharing your experiences and your passion, you're going to find that it's going to connect you to people in that community, which is going to help you become more informed and gain more expertise in that niche. So go ahead and embrace your unique interests. Maybe you have one or two, maybe you have a few, but pursuing those interests now is going to help you find that community. My other suggestion here is to not try to spread yourself too thin and not try to be a jack of all trades here. Because if you really do have a passion about one or two things, then I would chase those down, because if you try to resonate with everyone, you will resonate with no one. Someone who is interested in everything is probably going to appeal to no one. But if you have a particular interest in something, maybe it's teaching, maybe you follow a pocket full of primary because she's really enthusiastic about teaching, whatever it might be, people that embrace their unique talents and their niche will resonate and connect with other people that share those same passions. So my tip here is be authentic, not right. A lot of times people want to craft their image and that's really not them. Maybe they want to think of themselves as an intellectual and not as an athlete, or vice versa. But how you add value to the conversation in your community is by embracing your uniqueness. So instead of trying to pick the right image for yourself and crafting that, be authentic to who you are and let your personal values and interests be reflected in your personal brand. The other thing I want to say here is start early. The power of compounding. In personal finance, we talk about investing early. Let those dollars work for you the longest. It's the same way in social media. So if you have an interest in something and you write about it, you share your experiences, you write a blog, you make an instructional video, whatever it might be, the earlier you put that out is more time that has to reach people, more time that has to impact people. It's an extra day, a week, a month. A friend of mine has a very large YouTube channel, and one of the things that people ask is, how do I get 1 million subscribers like you do? And his advice is always the same. Go back in time 10 years, because that's honestly a big key for why he was so successful, is that he just started early when there was less competition. So just like in personal branding, if you know what your interest is, just start celebrating that early, because that gives you more time to find your community. And the longer you're involved with something that you're passionate about, the more credible it will be to the people that are observing you. Henry Ford said, you can't build a reputation on what you're going to do. I hear a lot of people sitting back and saying, hey, let me think about this. I really want to get a game plan together. I want to really think about what my messaging should be. And my tip here is that I wouldn't really worry about that right now. Just share what you're interested in. Let the brand be revealed. Just get started, because I'm not saying that what you put out today has got to be a core piece of your brand tomorrow. What I am saying is that people who are waiting and waiting because they don't want to make a misstep, they don't want to make a mistake, they want to have a really focused, cohesive message by the time they come out, are not doing themselves a favor. The people who are starting early with messy actions, who are maybe making mistakes along the way, are probably going to have a head start on you if you're waiting and waiting for the perfect messaging. All right, let's get to the heart of the matter here. Why is personal branding so important? The big reveal here is that a strong personal brand will help you stand out. Do colleges look at social media to decide admission? Clear personal brands are often associated with high achievers. 65% of college admissions officers consider social media fair game. And what I think is more interesting here is that less than half of them said it had a positive impact on their admissions application. If you're looking for a job, as most people are, right? 70% of prospective employers say they check social media. 43% of employers say they check it on current employees. Glassdoor, if you're familiar with them, just recently put out an article, 6 unspoken rules of promotions that no one tells you about. And number 2, your personal brand matters. And what they said here is that being good at your job, having the competence to do your job is table stakes. A lot of people in the company might have that, but when it comes to promotions, what they want are some of those softer things. The people who are looked at as influencers, the people who are looked at as leaders, even if they don't have a leadership title. So having a clear personal brand shows that you get things done, shows that you're really passionate about those things, and that will certainly help you with promotions. And my tip here is to become sought after, not seeking, especially when you are applying to colleges, applying to jobs. There are going to be a lot of people applying for all those positions. If you're applying to a school and you want to be in the 4% that's accepted, you're going to need something to help you stand out. If you're applying to a job and there are 20 other candidates, you've got to have something to help you stand out. There's a big difference between going to a school and going to an employer and asking to be let in versus a school or an employer finding someone that they really like. Maybe they saw someone give a presentation at a conference. Maybe they saw someone give an interview. Maybe they saw someone's blog post. As an employer, I want to hire the person that has shown that they are really passionate about this industry or this work, not the person who is just telling me that they're passionate and interested in the work. So you're probably asking, how do I build a personal brand? And I call this the DRIP method. And it stands for Discovery, Refinement, Immersion, Promotion. And the first step here is discovering more things, just trying more things, embracing your curiosity. Ask yourself the values questions. What's really important to you? Is adventure really important to you? You might want to try things like entrepreneurship or travel or sports, right? But if security is really important to you, maybe it's staying out of harm's way. Maybe it's pursuing more intellectual interests or non-contact activities in sports. But the key here is you don't necessarily know what you like and don't like until you've tried it. So you want to discover more things, try them out. From there, we get into refinement. We want to pursue our interests. And the big piece here is permit quitting. Just because you've started something doesn't mean you have to continue with it. If you're not finding interest in it, if it's just not gelling for you, if someone told you, hey, I think you'll find this really interesting, but you don't enjoy it, give yourself that permission to quit because you want to move on. We only have a certain amount of bandwidth and time. And so you want to move on to the things that really do interest you. This is where you'll start discovering what your talents and interests really are. What are you really good at? What do you really enjoy? What are the things that you do better than anybody else? And then the next step here is immersion. Double down on those things that you enjoy. If you're finding that you're not only good at something, but you enjoy it, you want to expand on it, maybe you want to make it a business or a career, whatever it is, go ahead and double down on that. Become a guru in this space, right? Someone who's looked at as an expert, someone who's looked at as a leader. These are things that you might enthusiastically do. The things that make you want to jump out of bed early to get started on. You want to immerse yourself in them. And these are the things that we're going to see you do. And it might not be your job. It might be your hobby or your passion. Maybe you don't have the time and flexibility to become a professional actor, but maybe you do it on the weekends and the evenings, locally in the community. And then lastly, promotion. And this is where we are starting to establish our personal brand. This is where we are messaging it out to people and letting people know what we're passionate about and what we're doing. This is when we fully embrace who we are and the things that we're really enthusiastic about and we share them. Yes, it can be on social media, but it doesn't have to be just that. Maybe you're writing about it, creating training materials about it. Maybe you're just sharing it with your friends and family. This is where we are promoting ourselves. This is where we're letting the world know. It might seem like self-promotion, but it's more about helping us establish more connections with people in our similar communities, people that are like-minded in our niche, connecting with people that might help us grow, but we might help them grow. So it's fully embracing the things that we're passionate about. And my tip here is be for something rather than against something. It might be trendy to be against something, but it doesn't usually last and it doesn't usually inspire a lot of people. And they might be subtle differences. So for example, you might be against environmental pollution, but it might be more inspiring and helpful to be for cleaning up polluted areas in your own neighborhood. So it can be a subtle difference, but instead of being against things, figure out what you're for, figure out how you're making a difference. And now, even though I've gone through that structure and that framework, and you can take some ideas maybe from it, here's a simpler method of figuring out what your brand is about. Your brand is really who you are. It's where you come from, what you do, and why you do it. And I put this picture up. This is me as an orphan in an orphanage in South Korea. I actually spent the first few years of my life in an orphanage, and I was very fortunate that within a few years, I was adopted by my family, grew up in the Detroit area. And one of the things that I think a lot about and haunts me is being helpless, being at the whim of people who are giving you charity, being powerless. It's not controlling your own destiny. And I think that's one of the big reasons that I really love personal finance, because it helps people find their own power. What I'm usually trying to do is give people ideas and education and tips and tricks so that they can control their own destiny, they control their own lives, so that people don't feel like they're powerless and always at the mercy of someone else. Hopefully they can have their own financial independence, control their own destiny, feel that security that they've made themselves. So that's why I do a lot of what I do. And that is really a big piece of my own personal brand. If you're curious what people are thinking about you, my tip is just Google yourself, type in your name. This might be the way some people who meet you are trying to figure out who you are and what you're about. So, getting back to my original story, how did I fix my personal brand? My YouTube channel, like I said, was about me, my life, the things that I was discovering. And my motto here was simply stuff I like. It's not really that telling, although it was showing stuff I liked. But as I was thinking about it, and I was thinking about why people are following my channel and subscribing, I realized what I was doing was I was on my own path to discover more things, explore deeper into those things, whether it's a product or a strategy, a vacation, a life hack, whatever it might be, because I wanted to make my life better. And so my slogan became discover more, explore deeper, live better. And I put that in my logo. I rebranded. I changed the look and feel. I started integrating that slogan into my videos. I would explain more explicitly what these products or these life hacks would do for people, why it would make their life a little bit better. And when I did that, I started to see the growth that I was hoping for. I started to see the growth that I was missing out. In fact, the last few years on my channel, post my rebranding, grew more than it ever had been. And it's been life-changing for me. And even some of my viewers have said that their lives have changed because of the things that they've discovered there. So while my content didn't necessarily fundamentally change, what I was doing didn't fundamentally change, having a clear brand, having a clear purpose, and sharing that with people really led to more success than I could have ever imagined. So it might seem like a small change, but in reality, it was a big fundamental shift that made a huge difference. One of the things that I want to call out here is that the journey to understanding your brand is really a journey to understanding your purpose. Understanding personal brand and the process for discovering that can help you discover those hobbies that you're really interested in, help you get into the school that you really want, or the job or the employer that you really want. It can help you potentially get that promotion, right? Stand out from the crowd. And in fact, it might help you in some of the other ways in your life here. Tim Ferriss says, going on a date, chances are that your blind date has Googled your name. That's the reality. They can find out a lot about you. What is that person going to find? Are they going to like what they find? Is it going to give them a clear impression of who you are? Or is the information just out there? Is it scattered? Does it convey nothing about you? Or are you controlling it? Are you putting out the things that you're really interested in? Are you giving the people who are looking for information about you a clear picture of who you really are? And I bring this up because a lot of times people are focused on the byproducts of these things. So a lot of times people want money and success and fortune and fame and whatever it might be. But the people that have those are often not focused on those. What they're focused on is figuring out what their purpose in life. They're focused on what are the things that they really want to spend their time on, and how do they get more involved in that? How did they become an expert on that? How do they become sought after in those spaces? Sean Cannell, famous YouTuber, says, influence first, then income. A lot of people have that backwards. And here, my tip is focus on the inputs, not the outcomes. Yeah, I'm not saying it's wrong to want to make a lot of money, but instead of focusing on how do I make a lot of money, why don't we focus on the inputs? How do I find what I'm really passionate about? How do I find where I really want to spend my time? How do I get connected to the community that's going to help me grow and get more immersed in the things that I'm really excited about? How am I going to become a leader in that space and help people who are also interested in my same interests? Because from there, you will gain authority, you'll gain influence, you'll gain visibility. That'll give you those opportunities to get in the schools, the jobs, the careers, the career paths, the promotions that you want. Inputs, not outcomes. Understanding your brand and your purpose. I like this quote by Dave Buck. Your brand is a gateway to your true work. You know you're here to do something, to create something or help others in some way. The question is, how can you set up your life and work so that you can do it? The answer lies in your brand. When you create a compelling brand, you attract people who want the promise of your brand, which you deliver. I think I'm like a lot of people. I want purpose. I want to do something for humanity. I want to have impact on the things that are important to me, right? And so having a clear personal brand, letting people know what you're about, who you are, what you do, and why you do it will help you get connected with the community and give you the visibility and maybe the opportunities to make more of an impact for people. So having a clear personal brand is not just about self-promotion. It can feel a little bit self-serving sometimes, but it's really about connecting you with your purpose so that you can have the opportunity to influence and impact others. My tip here is be you and your brand will be revealed. Establishing a personal brand is not something that you do in a moment. It is not an activity that you do one time. This is something that is built over a long period of time. So be you, follow the things that you're interested in. Let people know what you're doing, what your hobbies are, what your activities are, the things that you're really enjoying. Feel free to share those with the world because all of those things will help create your personal brand eventually. Now, I do have a couple of handouts here, but this one form here is child interest activity list. This is meant to be used with younger children. It's really a long list of various different things and kids can check off, yes, I'm interested in that, or no, I'm not. It's a great place to start to see, hey, what are some of the things that we should explore? What are some of the things that we should look at? What are some of the things that you might be interested in trying? And this is just a great way for kids to discover more, especially in that early phase where they don't necessarily know yet. And then the other thing here is this is put out by PwC. This is the Personal Brand Workbook, and this is a PDF, and this helps you go through that personal brand. This is provided usually to college students to help them get a clear understanding of who they are before they start going out and interviewing for jobs. So this is geared for a little bit older crowd. So hopefully these tools and resources might be a benefit to you. So what we've discussed here, I hope helps you on your journey to personal branding. Thanks so much for joining me. I'll see you later.